Perfect, I told my daughter-in-law Ashley when she announced that 25 people from her family would be coming to spend Christmas at my house. I'm going on vacation. You all can cook and clean. I'm not an employee. Her face went pale, as if she'd seen a ghost. But what she didn't know was that the real surprise was just beginning. My name is Susan Miller. I'm 66 years old, and for the past 5 years, I've been treated like a maid in my own home. It all started when my son, Ryan, married that woman. From day one, Ashley decided I was her personal assistant. Susan, get me coffee. Susan, clean this. Susan, cook for my guests. And I, like a fool, always obeyed. I thought that was how I'd keep my family together. But I had reached my limit. That Tuesday in December, Ashley walked into my kitchen as she always did, without knocking. With that fake smile I detested so much, she wore an expensive red dress that Ryan had surely paid for. Her heels clattered against my ceramic tile floor like hammers on my patience. "Susan," she said to me with that condescending tone she always used, "I have wonderful news. My whole family is coming to spend Christmas here. It's only 25 people." Only 25 people, as if it were nothing, as if I were a cooking and cleaning machine. I watched as her eyes gleamed with malice as she continued her master plan. She settled into my kitchen chair, crossed her legs, and began listing names as if reading from a shopping list. "I've already spoken with my sister, Chloe, my cousin, Emily, my brother-in-law, David, my uncle, Michael. They're all coming. My nieces and nephews, my second cousins, Chloe's kids will be here too. It will be a perfect Christmas." She paused dramatically, waiting for my usual panicked reaction. "Of course, you'll take care of everything. The food, the cleaning, serving the tables." Her words hit me like slaps. I remembered all the times I'd prepared dinners for her friends while she took the credit. All the times I'd cleaned up after her parties while she slept until noon. All the times I had been invisible in my own home. "We'll need at least 3 turkeys," she continued, ignoring my silence. "And that chocolate dessert you make, too. Oh, and you'll have to decorate the whole house. I want it to look perfect for Instagram photos." She waited for my typical, "Yes, Ashley," but this time was different. This time, something inside me had broken forever. I looked her directly in the eyes with a calm that even surprised me. "Perfect," I repeated, watching her smile begin to fade. "It will be a perfect Christmas for you, because I won't be here." The silence that followed was deafening. Ashley blinked several times as if she hadn't heard correctly. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The clatter of her heels stopped abruptly. "What do you mean you won't be here?" she finally managed to articulate, her voice trembling slightly. She sat up in the chair, her perfect posture beginning to crumble. "Exactly what you heard. I'm going on vacation. You all can cook, clean, and serve yourselves. I am not your employee." I watched as the color completely drained from her face. Her hands began to tremble slightly. The coffee cup she had been holding clinked against the saucer. For the first time in 5 years, Ashley didn't know what to say. But Susan," she stammered, "I already told everyone to come. Everything is already planned. You can't do this." "Of course I can. It's my house." Those 4 words dropped like a bomb in the kitchen. Ashley stood agape, her face turning from shock to fury. She abruptly stood up, her heels clattering again, but this time with desperation. "This is ridiculous. Ryan won't allow this." "Ryan can have whatever opinion he wants, but the decision is already made." For the first time, I was in control. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that my decision hadn't been spontaneous. I had been planning this for months, and I had my reasons. Reasons that would soon leave them all speechless. Ashley's expression changed from shock to fury in a matter of seconds. Her cheeks flushed, and her eyes narrowed like a snake about to strike. She approached me, invading my personal space, as she always did when she wanted to intimidate me. "You know what, Susan? I always knew you were selfish, but this is the last straw." Her voice turned venomous, each word laden with contempt. "My family is coming from far away, some from other states, and you You're going to ruin their Christmas over a whim. A whim. 5 years of mistreatment, humiliation, and emotional abuse, and she called it a whim. I felt the rage rise in my chest, but I remained serene. I had learned to control my emotions after so long being her victim. "It's not my problem," I replied, with a calm that unsettled her even more. "You should have consulted me before inviting 25 people to my house." "Our house!" she screamed, completely losing her composure. "Ryan is your son. This house will be ours someday." There it was, the truth that had always been floating in the air but had never been said aloud. Ashley didn't see me as family. She saw me as a temporary obstacle before inheriting everything I had built with years of hard work and sacrifice. "Interesting perspective," I murmured, watching her pupils dilate in panic as she realized what she had revealed. "Very interesting." Just then, I heard keys in the front door. Ryan had arrived home from work. Ashley ran to him like a child going to complain to her dad, her heels hitting the floor with desperate urgency. Ryan, your mom has gone crazy. She says she's not going to help with Christmas. She says she's going on vacation and leaving us alone with my whole family." I heard their muffled voices from the living room. Ashley was speaking erratically, her tone sharp and dramatic. Ryan mumbled responses I couldn't make out. After a few minutes, their footsteps approached the kitchen. My son appeared in the doorway, his suit wrinkled after a day at the office, his face tired but annoyed. Behind him, Ashley followed like a shadow, arms crossed and a triumphant expression. She clearly expected him to put me in my place. "Mom," Ryan began with that paternalistic tone he had adopted since his marriage, "Ashley told me about your decision. Don't you think you're being a little dramatic?" Dramatic. My own son called me dramatic for refusing to be his wife's maid. I felt something cold and hard settle in my stomach. Something that had been growing for months finally crystallized in that moment. "No, Ryan, I'm not being dramatic. I'm being clear." "But Mom, it's Christmas. It's family time. Ashley already invited everyone. We can't cancel now." "I didn't say cancel. I said I won't be here." Ashley stepped forward, placing herself between Ryan and me like a human barrier. "See what I mean? She's become completely irrational. What will my relatives think? What will I tell them?" "Tell them the truth," I replied calmly. "That you assumed I would be your employee without consulting me, and you were wrong." Ryan sighed deeply, running his hand through his hair as he did when frustrated. "Mom, be reasonable. You know Ashley can't cook for 25 people alone." "And why not? I've cooked for her parties for years. It's time she learned." "But I work," Ashley protested. "I can't take days off to cook. My career is important." Her career. A part-time position at a boutique she had probably gotten through Ryan's connections. But of course, her career was more important than my time, my energy, my dignity. "Then hire a caterer," I suggested with a sweet smile. "There are many excellent options in town." "Catering costs a fortune," Ryan exclaimed. "Why spend thousands of dollars when you can?" He stopped abruptly, realizing what he was about to say. "When you can do it for free, as always, as the employee you think I am." The silence stretched between us like a crack deepening. Ashley and Ryan exchanged nervous glances. I could see the wheels turning in their heads, trying to find a way to manipulate me into giving in. "Look, Mom," Ryan finally said, adopting a softer tone. "I know you've been sensitive lately. Maybe you're going through some hormonal changes." Hormonal changes. Seriously? He was reducing me to a hysterical menopausal woman. The fury I had been containing began to boil beneath the surface, but I managed to keep my voice steady. "There's nothing hormonal about this, Ryan. There's something very clear. Respect. And for 5 years, neither you nor your wife has shown me any." "That's not true," Ashley protested. "We've always treated you well. You're part of the family." "Part of the family that serves, cleans, and cooks while you all have fun. Part of the family that is never consulted, but is always expected to obey." Ryan approached me, placing his hand on my shoulder as he used to do when he was a child and wanted something. But he was no longer the sweet boy I had raised. He was a man who had chosen his wife over his mother in every conflict of the last 5 years. "It's okay, Mom. I understand you're upset. But think about it. It's only 1 week. After Christmas, everything goes back to normal." Normal. They're normal, where I was invisible, except when they needed me, where my feelings didn't matter as long as their lives were comfortable, where my house had ceased to be my refuge and had become their personal hotel. "No, Ryan, things are not going back to normal because I'm leaving tomorrow." They both froze. Ashley was the first to react, her voice rising an octave. "Tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," I confirmed, enjoying the panic that began to flicker in her eyes. "I already have everything arranged." What they didn't know was that I really had everything arranged, but not in the way they thought. "This is crazy!" Ashley shrieked, her eyes wide as she paced back and forth in my kitchen like a caged animal. "You can't leave tomorrow. It's impossible. My family arrives in 3 days." "Well, you should have thought about that before assuming I would be your employee," I replied, keeping my voice serene as I calmly washed my coffee cup. Every movement was calculated to show that I was unfazed by her dramatic performance. Ryan stood there, shifting nervously from one foot to the other, clearly torn between supporting his hysterical wife and trying to reason with me. His eyes darted between us as if watching a very tense tennis match. "Mom, please," he finally murmured. "At least tell us where you're going. When are you coming back?" "I'm going to visit my sister in Miami," I lied smoothly, "and I'll be back after New Year's." The lie came out so naturally that even I was surprised, but it was necessary. They couldn't know my true plans. Not yet. "After New Year's?" Ashley practically choked on her own words. But what are we going to do? I already told everyone to come. My Uncle Michael already bought plane tickets from Colombia. Chloe canceled her plans. Emily took days off work. "Those are your problems, not mine." I watched as desperation began to replace anger on Ashley's face. Her perfectly manicured hands trembled as she clung to the marble countertop, her knuckles white from the pressure. "Susan," her voice suddenly changed, becoming syrupy and manipulative. "You know I've always considered you like a second mother. You're so important to me, to us. You can't abandon us like this." There it was. The change in tactic from fury to emotional manipulation. I had seen this play many times before, but it no longer worked on me. "If you really considered me a mother, you wouldn't treat me like a maid." "But I don't treat you like a maid. I just thought you enjoyed cooking for the family. I thought you liked feeling useful." Useful. That word pierced me like a dagger. For 5 years, I had believed that being useful was my way of keeping the peace, of ensuring a place in my son's life. But now I understood that being useful had only made me a shadow in my own home. "You know what, Ashley? You're right. I do like to feel useful. That's why I'm going to be useful to myself for the first time in years." Ryan intervened again, his frustration now evident in every line of his face. "Mom, this isn't fair. You know we don't have the money to hire a caterer for 25 people. The deposit for the new apartment left us with no savings." New apartment. This was the first I was hearing about a new apartment. My eyes narrowed as I processed this information. Since when were they planning to move, and why hadn't they told me anything? "What new apartment?" I asked, my voice laced with dangerous curiosity. Ashley and Ryan exchanged a guilty look, the kind of look you share when you've just revealed something that was supposed to be kept secret. "Well," Ryan began, looking down at his shoes, "we were going to tell you after the holidays. We found an amazing place downtown, 3 bedrooms, ocean view, gym in the building." "Sounds expensive," I observed, keeping my tone neutral, though my mind was racing. "Well, yes, but it's worth the investment. And don't worry, we're not moving far, only 30 minutes from here." 30 minutes. close enough to keep using my house as their personal restaurant, but far enough to have their privacy. How convenient. And how do you plan to pay for it? I asked, though I already had a suspicion about the answer. Ashley suddenly lit up as if she had found the perfect solution to all our problems. That's why it's so important that we have a perfect Christmas. My Uncle Michael is very generous when he's impressed. And my brother-in-law David has connections in real estate. If everything goes well, they could help us with Ryan's business. There it was. The real reason behind the big Christmas celebration wasn't about family or traditions. It was about money, about impressing rich relatives to get financial favors. And I was the key piece in their manipulation plan. I understand, I murmured, letting the silence stretch as both awaited my response. So you need your Christmas to be perfect to impress the rich family. Exactly, Ashley exclaimed, relieved that I finally understood the importance of the situation. I knew you'd understand. You're so smart, Susan. You always know what's right. What's right? For 5 years, what was right had been to sacrifice my comfort, my time, my dignity to make their lives easier. But now, I had a completely different perspective on what was right. You're right, Ashley. I know exactly what's right. That's why my decision stands. I'm leaving tomorrow. Hope vanished from their faces like spilling water. Ashley began to breathe rapidly on the verge of a panic attack. You can't do this. You can't ruin our future over a tantrum. It's not a tantrum. It's a well-thought-out decision. But what will my relatives think when they arrive and there's no one to greet them? What will they think when they see there's no food prepared? They'll think their niece invited them without having the capacity to host, and they'll be right. Ryan moved closer, his desperation now palpable. Mom, please, if you really need a vacation, we can postpone it. After New Year's, you can go wherever you want, for as long as you want. We'll pay for the trip, the hotel, everything. They would pay for the trip. With what money? I wondered if they had just said the apartment deposit had left them with no savings, but it didn't matter. Their offer came 5 years too late. The offer is tempting, Ryan, but I've already made my decision. This is emotional blackmail. Ashley burst out, her mask of sweetness finally falling off completely. You're using our situation to manipulate us. Emotional blackmail. The words floated in the air like an involuntary confession. Because if I was using emotional blackmail by refusing to be their free employee, what had they been doing for 5 years? You know what emotional blackmail is, Ashley? It's making me feel guilty every time I don't want to cook for your friends. It's telling me that a good mother-in-law always puts family first when I refuse to clean up after your parties. It's assuming my plans don't matter because I'm retired and have nothing better to do. Each word was a bullet hitting its target. I watched as they both flinched slightly with each accusation because they knew it was true. Everything was true. That's not the same, Ashley stammered, but her voice had lost all its previous strength. You're right. It's not the same, because what you've done is much worse. You've taken my generosity for granted for years. The kitchen fell into a tense silence. I could hear the ticking of the wall clock, the hum of the refrigerator, Ashley's agitated breathing. But what I could hear most clearly was the sound of my own freedom approaching, because tomorrow everything would change, and they had no idea how much. That night, while Ashley and Ryan were still in the living room arguing in desperate whispers, I locked myself in my bedroom and pulled out my laptop. It was time to put the second phase of my plan into action, a plan that had been brewing for months since I discovered something that changed my entire perspective on my dear daughter-in-law. 3 months ago, while foolishly cleaning Ryan's study, I had found a forgotten folder among his papers, a folder full of bank statements, printed emails, and legal documents. At first, I thought they were work papers, but something caught my attention. Ashley's name appeared again and again in transactions I didn't understand. That night after they went to sleep, I went back to the study and meticulously reviewed everything. What I found chilled me to the bone. Ashley had been spending money they didn't have. A lot of money. Credit cards in Ryan's name that he didn't know about, personal loans using the house as collateral, compulsive purchases at luxury stores totaling over $50,000 in debt. But that wasn't all. I also found emails where Ashley discussed with her friends how to manage Ryan so he wouldn't discover her expenses, how to keep him distracted while she continued shopping, and most chilling of all, a message thread where she planned to convince him to sell the house to invest in their future together. My house, the house where I had lived for 30 years, the house I had paid for with my work, my savings, my sacrifices. Ashley wanted Ryan to sell it to pay off her compulsive shopping debts. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed awake until dawn, processing the betrayal, the manipulation, the deception. But along with the devastation, something else began to grow, a cold, calculated determination to protect myself. The next day, I began my own silent investigation. I hired a private detective, a discreet man my lawyer had recommended years ago. I asked him to track all of Ashley's financial activities. What we discovered was even worse than I imagined. Not only had she been spending compulsively, but she had also been lying about her job. Her important career at the boutique was part-time, and she barely made minimum wage, but she had been telling Ryan she earned 3 times what she actually received. Where did she get the extra money for her personal expenses? From the secret credit cards, of course. And there was more. Ashley had been telling her relatives that we were much richer than we actually were. She had told them that Ryan had a prosperous business, that I had a considerable fortune, that our house was worth twice its real price. All lies to maintain her image as a successful and well-married woman. Now, as I looked at my laptop screen in the silent darkness of my room, I smiled for the first time in months, because I had taken steps they couldn't even imagine. First, I had moved all my savings to a new account at a different bank, an account Ryan knew nothing about and to which he would never have access. Then I had consulted with my lawyer on how to protect the house's ownership. It turns out there were very effective legal ways to ensure no one could force me to sell it. But my masterstroke had been to contact Ashley's family directly. Not everyone, just those who really mattered. Her uncle Michael, the successful businessman from Colombia, her brother-in-law David, the real estate agent who was supposedly going to help them, her sister Chloe, who worked in finance and had an impeccable reputation in the family. I had sent them very polite emails presenting myself as Ashley's concerned mother-in-law. I had told them I was worried about the young couple's delicate financial situation and wanted to ask for advice on how to help. Of course, I had accidentally attached some of the most alarming bank statements I had found. The responses were immediate. Michael was furious about being deceived about Ashley's real situation. David immediately canceled any plans for financial assistance. Chloe was so angry, she threatened to come personally to put her younger sister's life in order. But best of all, none of them had told Ashley anything. They were still waiting for the Christmas gathering to confront her in person. A gathering that now wouldn't have the hostess they expected, nor the food they had promised, nor the festive atmosphere Ashley had painted in her lies. My phone vibrated with a text message. It was from Michael. Mrs. Miller, after reviewing the documents you sent us, my family and I have decided to arrive one day earlier than planned. We want to speak with Ashley about some important matters before the celebration. Will it be possible to receive us on the 23rd in the morning? The 23rd in the morning, exactly when I would be packing my bags for my trip to Miami. What a perfect coincidence of fate. I replied quickly, "Of course, Michael. It will be a pleasure to receive you, although I must inform you that I will be leaving on a trip that same day, so Ashley and Ryan will be your hosts." His reply came in seconds. "Perfect. That will be exactly what we need." I closed the laptop and leaned back in my bed, smiling in the darkness. For 5 years, I had been the silent victim, the submissive mother-in-law, the free employee. But all that time, I had been observing, learning, understanding how my in-laws really operated. Ashley thought she was very clever, very manipulative, very cunning, but she had gravely underestimated the older woman who cleaned up her mess. She had assumed that my age and apparent docility meant I was helpless. Tomorrow morning, while she was still sleeping, I would be packing my bags, not for Miami as I had told them. My true destination was a luxury hotel only an hour away, where I had reserved an ocean view suite for the next 2 weeks. From there, I would have a front row seat to the collapse of the small kingdom of lies Ashley had built. I would see her family discover her deceptions. I would see Ryan finally open his eyes to the woman he had married. I would see her entire, perfectly manipulated world crumble piece by piece, and best of all, I wouldn't have to lift a finger to make it happen. Ashley had dug her own grave with years of lies and deceit. I had simply taken the shovel from her hands and shown her family where to look. Outside, I could hear that the discussion in the living room had finally ended. Footsteps on the stairs, doors closing, the tense silence of a house full of unresolved conflicts. But I slept deeply that night. For the first time in 5 years, I slept with the smile of someone who knows that justice, though slow, always comes. At 6 a.m, my alarm clock rang like the song of freedom. I got up with an energy I hadn't felt in years. I showered calmly and began to pack my bags. Every garment I folded was another step towards my independence. Every object I put away was a silent declaration that I was no longer anyone's employee. Ashley and Ryan were still asleep. I could hear their deep breaths from the hallway as I carried my suitcases down the stairs. I had prepared a note that I left on the kitchen table next to the spare house keys. A brief but precise note. I have decided to move my trip forward. The house is in your hands. Enjoy your perfect Christmas. Susan. What I didn't mention in the note was that I had made some additional preparations before leaving, such as completely emptying the pantry and the refrigerator. After all, if they were going to host 25 people, they would need to learn to be responsible for grocery shopping. I had also stored all my good china, my elegant tablecloths, and my Christmas decorations in my locked bedroom. If they wanted to impress the rich family, they would have to get their own supplies. But my final touch had been to cancel the cleaning service that came twice a week, a service I had paid for years, but which Ashley always took credit for having an immaculate house. From today, she would be able to experience what it really meant to keep a house clean on her own. The taxi arrived promptly at 7 a.m. As the driver loaded my suitcases, I took one last look at the house where I had lived for 3 decades, a house that had been my refuge, then my prison, and now would again be my fortress. Because even though I was leaving temporarily, this was still my house, and I had every intention of reclaiming it completely. The hotel where I stayed was everything I had dreamed of during my years of forced domestic service. A spacious suite with an ocean view, 24-hour room service, and most importantly, absolute silence. No one shouting at me from the kitchen, no one expecting me to appear with fresh coffee, no one assuming my time had no value. I had carefully planned everything. I knew Ashley wouldn't get up until 10, as she always did on weekends. By then, I would already be settled in my suite, having a breakfast I hadn't had to prepare myself, watching the morning news without interruption. My phone started ringing at 10:47 in the morning. Ryan, of course. "Mom, where are you? We found your note, but why did you move the trip forward?" His voice sounded confused, still sleepy. He had probably just discovered that the pantry was empty and that there was no one to prepare his weekend breakfast. "Good morning, Ryan. I decided there was no point in prolonging the inevitable. You all have a lot to do to prepare, and I'm very eager to rest." "But Mom, this is very sudden. Ashley is, well, she's quite upset." Upset? What a diplomatic way of saying she was having a full-blown panic attack upon realizing she would actually have to take charge of her own life. "I'm sure she'll manage perfectly. After all, she's a very capable woman." There was a long pause. I could hear voices in the background, Ashley talking erratically in a hysterical tone. "Could you at least tell us where you are, in case of emergency?" "I am safe and well located. That's all you need to know." "Mom, please, I know you're upset, but this is extreme. Ashley's family is coming in 2 days, and we don't know how—" "Ryan," I interrupted him firmly, "you are 32 years old. Ashley is 29. You are perfectly functional adults. I'm sure you can solve your own problems without depending on a 66-year-old woman. Another pause, this time longer. Okay, he finally sighed. But promise me you'll be okay. And when are you coming back? I'll come back when I'm ready. Enjoy your Christmas. I hung up before he could keep insisting. I immediately put the phone on silent. I knew the next few hours would be a constant barrage of desperate calls and messages, but I had waited 5 years for this moment of peace. I wasn't going to let them ruin it for me. From my suite window, I could see the ocean stretching to infinity. The waves broke softly against the beach, hypnotic and calm. For the first time in years, there was no mental list of tasks to complete, meals to prepare, or tables to clean. There was only the present moment and my newly won freedom. I ordered lunch from room service. Lobster thermidor, something I would never have cooked for myself because it would have seemed too extravagant by the standards of austerity Ashley had imposed in my own home. The food arrived on an elegant cart, served on fine china, with a fresh rose in a small vase. As I ate slowly, savoring each bite, my phone constantly blinked with silenced notifications. I could imagine the growing desperation in my house, the gradual realization that they would actually have to do the shopping, plan the menus, clean the house, and all without their trusted housekeeper. But the best was yet to come, because tomorrow morning, exactly when I had calculated, Ashley's family would start to arrive and wouldn't find the perfect Christmas she had promised them. Instead, they would find the raw reality of who the woman who had been living a lie for years really was. At 3 p.m, I finally checked my messages. There were 17 missed calls from Ryan, 31 from Ashley, and an avalanche of text messages that escalated from confusion to pleading to indignation. But the message that really interested me was one that had arrived from Michael at noon. Mrs. Miller, my family and I are arriving tomorrow at 8 a.m. as agreed. We look forward to meeting you personally and having that important conversation with Ashley. Thank you for your hospitality. Hospitality? If only he knew that, by 8 a.m. tomorrow, the only hospitality they would find would be Ashley trying to explain why the house was empty, why there was no food prepared, and why the generous mother-in-law she had talked so much about had mysteriously disappeared. I replied to Michael, I regret to inform you that I had to move my trip forward due to unexpected family commitments. Ashley and Ryan will be delighted to receive you. I am sure you will have much to discuss. His reply came immediately. I understand perfectly. In fact, it will be better that way. Some conversations are best had in private. Private. Exactly what they needed. A private conversation between a woman who had been lying for years and a family who finally knew the truth about her financial deceptions. That afternoon, as I enjoyed a massage at the hotel spa, I allowed myself to imagine the scene that would unfold tomorrow morning. Ashley and Ryan waking up in a panic, rushing at the last minute to the supermarket, desperately trying to create the illusion of hospitality they had promised. And then, at 8 o'clock, the sound of the doorbell announcing the arrival of the family who had come to settle old scores. I couldn't help but smile as the masseuse worked out the knots of tension that had been in my shoulders for 5 years, knots that were finally beginning to unravel one by one, just like Ashley's lies. The 23rd dawned with a clear sky and my phone exploding with calls. I had slept soundly, but woke up to Ryan's first call at 6:30 in the morning. I didn't answer. At 6:45 it was Ashley, then Ryan again, then Ashley in a desperate cycle that amused me more than it should have. As I calmly ate Eggs Benedict with smoked salmon on my suite's terrace, I decided to check the voicemails that had been accumulating. The first was from Ryan, obviously recorded while driving in a hurry. Mom, please answer. Ashley is hysterical. We don't know what to prepare for breakfast for 25 people. The supermarket doesn't open until 8, and the family arrives exactly at that time. We need urgent help. Please, please call us. The second was from Ashley, and her voice sounded completely broken. Susan, I know you're angry with me, and I understand why. But please don't make me look bad in front of my family. They've traveled from very far. My Uncle Michael is coming from Colombia. Chloe canceled important plans. I don't know how to cook for so many people. I don't even know where to start. I promise we'll talk later and fix everything, but right now I desperately need your help." Interesting. For the first time in 5 years, Ashley admitted she needed me. For the first time, it wasn't an order disguised as a request, but a genuine plea. But it had come too late. The third message was even better. Ashley again, but now crying. "Susan, I just checked the pantry and the refrigerator. It's all empty. Why is there nothing? How am I going to feed my family breakfast? Where's the good china? Where are the Christmas tablecloths? Please, at least tell me where you put everything. Just that, please." Ah, yes, the realization that maintaining a house requires planning, effort, and real money. The belated understanding that food doesn't magically appear in refrigerators, that tables don't set themselves, that decorations don't install themselves by magic. But the message I was really waiting for arrived at 7:15 in the morning. It was from a voice I didn't recognize, but who spoke with authority. "Mrs. Miller, this is Michael, Ashley's uncle. We arrived early at the airport and decided to come directly to your house. We expect to be there in 15 minutes. I am very much looking forward to meeting you and having that conversation we've been planning." Perfect. They would arrive exactly when Ashley and Ryan were at their moment of maximum panic, with the house empty, no food, no preparations, and no magical mother-in-law who always solved all their problems. At 8:20 in the morning, my phone rang. This time, I answered. "Mom." Ryan's voice was shaky, on the verge of a nervous breakdown. "Can you talk?" "Good morning, Ryan." "Of course I can talk. How is your morning going?" "Mom, please don't do this. Ashley's family just arrived, and we have nothing to offer them, literally nothing. Ashley is crying in the bathroom, and I don't know what to do." "Have you explained the situation to them yet?" "What situation? How do I explain to them that my mother decided to go on vacation right when we needed her most? When they needed me most, not when I needed respect, understanding, or a simple thank you for 5 years of service, only when they needed me. Tell them the truth, Ryan, that for 5 years you took for granted that I would be your free housekeeper, and that I finally decided I deserved a vacation. Mom, they don't understand English very well. I can't explain something so complicated to them. Then find a translator, or learn to communicate better. I'm sure you'll figure it out." I could hear voices in the background, multiple conversations, in what sounded like a mix of panic and confusion. Someone spoke in Spanish in a severe tone, probably Michael asking where the main hostess was. "At least, can you tell us where you always bought the food? What did you usually prepare for special occasions? Anything that helps us." "Ryan, I didn't always buy anything. I planned weeks in advance, researched recipes, made detailed lists, compared prices, and dedicated entire days to preparation. It wasn't magic. It was work. A lot of work." The silence on the other end told me he was finally beginning to understand the magnitude of what he had been ignoring for years. "Look," he continued in a smaller voice, "I know we've been inconsiderate, but right now I need practical solutions. What do I do with 25 hungry people in my living room? Order takeout, call restaurants, go to the supermarket. Do what all responsible adults do when they have guests. But it's Christmas! Everything is closed or super busy! Restaurants have no availability! Then maybe you should have thought about that before inviting 25 people without consulting the person you expected to do all the work." Just then, I heard a new voice in the background speaking in very serious Spanish. Michael was clearly demanding explanations about the situation. "Mom, Ashley's uncle wants to talk to you. He says he needs to understand what's going on here." "I'd love to talk to him, but I'm on vacation. Tell him Ashley can explain everything perfectly. After all, she was the one who organized this gathering." "Please, Mom, just 5 minutes. He's very confused and a little upset. I think he can help us solve this." Help us. Again, it was all about helping them. It was never about what I needed, what I deserved, or how they had made me feel for years. Ryan, listen to me very carefully. For 5 years, every time you needed something, I was there. Every time Ashley wanted to impress someone, I did the work. Every time you had problems, I was the solution. Today, for the first time in half a decade, you have to solve your own problems, and that is not my responsibility. But it's my family, he finally cried, losing his composure. It's your grandson who's going to look bad. His grandson, of course, now appealing to the ultimate emotional blackmail. But there was a problem with his logic. What grandson, Ryan? The question dropped like a bomb. There was a long, tense silence. Well, in the future, when Ashley and I... There's the problem. It's all future plans, vague promises, expectations that I should fulfill based on possibilities, but there's never any consideration for what I need now. At that moment, I clearly heard Michael's voice speaking in English, obviously addressing Ryan. Young man, I don't understand what kind of family organizes a gathering like this. Where is the woman of the house? Where is the grandmother who invited us? The woman of the house, the grandmother who invited them. Michael clearly understood from his conversations with Ashley that I was the matriarch who organized these gatherings, the main hostess, the person responsible for family hospitality. And now there was no one, only two confused adults who were finally facing the consequences of their own decisions. Mom, please, at least talk to him. Explain that there's a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Ryan. There's a reality that you refuse to see for years. And that reality is that without mutual respect, there is no functional family. I hung up. This time, I completely turned off my phone. It was time for the second phase of my plan. After turning off my phone, I went to the hotel's business center. It was time to implement the most delicious part of my plan. For months, I had been preparing this, and now was the perfect moment to execute it. I sat in front of a computer and opened my email. I had several new messages from Ashley's family. All had arrived in the last 2 hours. The first was from Chloe, the financially responsible sister. Dear Susan, we have just arrived at your house and the situation is quite confusing. Ashley told us that you left due to an emergency, but we don't understand why the house seems uninhabited. There's no food, no Christmas preparations, and frankly, Ashley's attitude is very strange. Could we talk on the phone? The second message was from Michael, and his tone was considerably more serious. Mrs. Miller, I respect that you had to travel for an emergency, but I need to understand what is happening in this house. Ashley cannot coherently explain where the food she promised is, why there are no Christmas decorations, or even why she didn't know you wouldn't be here. This does not at all match the picture she painted for us of the family situation. Please contact me urgently. Perfect. It was exactly the opening I had been waiting for. I replied to both emails with a carefully constructed message. Dear Michael and Chloe, I deeply regret the confusion. I was forced to move my trip forward due to circumstances I prefer not to discuss by email. However, I believe it is important that you understand the true situation of Ashley and Ryan before continuing with the Christmas plans. The documents I sent you earlier reflect only a part of the financial reality. If you really want to help Ashley, I suggest you have a very frank conversation with her about her spending habits and her unrealistic expectations of family support. Sincerely, Susan. I sent the message and waited. I didn't have to wait long. 20 minutes later, my hotel phone rang. It was the reception. Ma'am, you have a long-distance call. Mr. Michael says it's urgent. Put him through, please. Michael's voice sounded tense, but controlled. Mrs. Miller, thank you for taking my call. I need to ask you some direct questions about my niece. Of course, Michael, I'm all ears. First, is it true that Ashley has been asking you to cook and clean for all her family gatherings? That's right. For the past 5 years, every time you've come or when she has guests, I've taken care of all the preparations. And when she told us about the elaborate dinners and perfect events, did she organize them or did you? I planned everything from scratch. Ashley took the credit. There was a long pause. I could hear voices in the background, clearly Michael discussing with someone in Spanish. Second question, are the financial statements you sent us real? Completely real. I obtained them directly from my son's personal files. And does Ashley know you discovered her debts? No. Until today, she had no idea that I knew about her secret expenses or her lies about her income. I understand. His voice had turned cold as ice. One more question. Why did you decide to leave exactly now? Because I got tired of being treated like a domestic employee in my own home. Ashley assumed I would cook for 25 people without even asking if I was available or willing. The silence that followed was long and tense. Finally, Michael spoke with a voice that exuded disappointment and contained anger. Mrs. Miller, my family owes you an apology. Ashley has been lying to us for years. She painted a picture of you as a prosperous family where she was the perfect organizer. She asked us for financial help to expand Ryan's business when apparently the money was to pay off her compulsive shopping debts. I'm afraid so. And we, like fools, were willing to help because we believed she had proven to be responsible and successful, when in reality, you have been the one who has kept everything running while she took the credit. I didn't expect you to know the truth. Well, now we know. And let me tell you that my family does not tolerate this kind of deception. Ashley is going to have to give very serious explanations. I could imagine the scene in my house. A desperate Ashley trying to explain why there was no food, why the house was disorganized, why she didn't know how to cook for the family she had invited, and now, on top of everything, having to face an uncle who knew all her financial secrets. Michael, if I may suggest something, please, I think it would be beneficial for Ashley to face the natural consequences of her decisions. She has lived in a bubble of privilege where others solved her problems. Perhaps it is time for her to learn to be truly independent. I completely agree. In fact, I have news for her that will drastically change her perspective. May I ask what kind of news? The supposed financial support she expected from the family for her husband's business. Well, that depended entirely on her proving to be fiscally responsible and transparent. After seeing these documents and the current situation, I can assure you there will be no support. My smile widened. I understand, but there's more. My brother-in-law David, who was going to help them with real estate connections, is also very disgusted. Apparently, Ashley had asked him to evaluate some investment properties, including the house where you live. Did you know about this? This was new. I didn't know Ashley had gone so far as to ask David to evaluate my house for sale. The betrayal was even worse than I had imagined. No, I didn't know about that. Well, David is furious. He invested time and resources evaluating properties based on false information about Ashley's financial situation. He feels completely deceived. Like all of you, I imagine. Exactly, which brings me to my main point. My family has decided that this perfect Christmas is going to turn into a family intervention. Ashley is going to have to explain every lie, every deception, every manipulation. A family intervention. This was even better than I had planned. Not only would Ashley have to face the logistical disaster of having no food or preparations, but she would also have to account to her entire family for years of deceit. And what about the other relatives? Everyone is aware of the situation. Chloe is already reviewing all the financial documents you sent us. Emily is calling other family members to inform them about the real situation. By dinner time, the whole family will know the truth about Ashley, and she knows it. Not yet, but she's about to. I could hear voices rising in the background of the call. Clearly, things were escalating inside my house. Mrs. Miller, I have to go back to face this situation, but I want you to know that my family respects you enormously for having endured this for so long and for having had the dignity to walk away when you couldn't anymore. Thank you, Michael. That means a lot to me. One more thing. When you're ready to return, we hope to be able to meet you properly. The real Susan, not the employee Ashley pretended you were. It will be a pleasure. I hung up and leaned back in my chair, feeling a deep, warm satisfaction. In my house, Ashley's world of lies was crumbling piece by piece, exactly as I had planned. But the best was yet to come. That afternoon, I decided it was time to personally check how my masterpiece was unfolding. I hired a discreet chauffeur service and asked him to drive me around my neighborhood, not to intervene, of course, but simply to observe from a safe distance the result of years of silent planning. When we arrived at my street, the scene I found exceeded even my most optimistic expectations. There were 3 cars parked in my driveway that I recognized as Ashley's family's rental vehicles. But what really caught my attention were the multiple grocery bags scattered on the front porch, clearly abandoned in the midst of some kind of crisis. "Stop here," I told the chauffeur, "but keep a distance where they can't see us." From my vantage point, I could see figures moving frantically behind the windows of my living room. Every now and then, someone would go out to the backyard, talking on the phone with dramatic gestures. It was like watching a telenovela in real time, but 1,000 times more satisfying because I knew all the secrets the characters were about to discover. My phone vibrated. It was a text message from an unknown number. "Mrs. Miller, this is Chloe. Could you call me when you have a moment? I need to ask you some questions about additional documents." I called immediately. Chloe answered on the first ring, her voice tense but professional. "Mrs. Miller, thank you for calling. I'm reviewing my sister's financial situation and, well, it's worse than we thought." "In what sense?" "I just discovered that she has been using Ryan's name and credit information to open accounts he doesn't know about. This could be considered identity fraud." This was new to me. I had discovered the secret credit cards, but I didn't know Ashley had gone to the extreme of using my son's identity without his knowledge. "Ryan knows?" "We just told him an hour ago. His reaction was intense." I could imagine my son, who had always been meticulous with his finances, discovering that his wife had been compromising his credit and financial reputation without his consent. How is he handling the information? Honestly, I think he's in shock. He keeps repeating that there must be a misunderstanding, that Ashley would never intentionally do something like that, but the documents don't lie. No, they don't lie. "Mrs. Miller, I have to ask you something delicate. Did you know that Ashley had told our family that you were considering making her the beneficiary of your will?" This question hit me like lightning. "What?" "Yes. Ashley told us that you loved her so much that you were planning to leave her the house and a significant portion of your savings. She used that as collateral for some of the loans she took out." The betrayal was even deeper than I had imagined. Ashley had not only been lying about her current financial situation, but she had also been speculating on my death and my inheritance to obtain credit. "Chloe, I can assure you that is completely false. My will does not include Ashley as a beneficiary of anything." I imagined, but she used that story to convince some family lenders that it was a safe investment to lend her money. Family lenders? Yes, some of our cousins who live in the United States. She borrowed over $20,000 from them, using her supposed future inheritance as collateral. $20,000 in debts that I was supposedly going to cover with my death. It was so twisted, so calculatingly malicious, that for a moment I was speechless. They know the truth? I'm explaining it to them right now. As you can imagine, they are not happy. I could hear voices rising in the background of our conversation. Clearly, the confrontations were escalating inside my house. "Chloe, I have to ask you something. How is Ashley reacting to all these revelations?" There was a long pause. She's in complete denial. She keeps insisting that it's all a misunderstanding, that the documents are misinterpreted, that you are being vengeful because you felt excluded from the Christmas plans. Of course, even confronted with irrefutable evidence of her lies and manipulations, Ashley still tried to play the victim. And the rest of the family, how are they taking it? Bad. Very bad. My Uncle Michael is furious because he was going to invest in Ryan's supposed business based on completely false information. Emily is angry because she had planned to move closer to you all to be near the prosperous and stable family Ashley had described to her. David feels completely deceived about the property appraisals. "And Christmas, what happened to the celebration plans?" Chloe laughed bitterly. "What Christmas? Ashley ordered pizza for 25 people because she didn't know how to cook anything else. We're eating on paper napkins because she can't find the good dishes. And instead of celebrating, we're having the most intense family confrontation of our lives. Pizza for 25 people at the grand Christmas celebration that was supposed to impress the rich family. The irony was delicious. You know what's the saddest part? Chloe continued. Ashley keeps asking when you're coming back. She still believes that somehow she's going to be able to manipulate you into coming back and fixing this whole mess. And what have you told her? The truth. That after 5 years of emotional abuse and manipulation, you finally had the courage to set boundaries, and that we as a family respect you for that. I felt a warmth spread through my chest. For the first time in years, there were people who understood and validated my position. Chloe, may I ask what you plan to do now? Are you staying for Christmas? Some are leaving tomorrow. This isn't the family gathering we expected, and frankly, we don't want to be part of the drama Ashley created. But a few of us are going to stay to make sure she understands the consequences of her actions. What kind of consequences? Well, for starters, all family loans are going to be canceled immediately. She'll have to find a way to return the money she already received. The financial support for Ryan's business obviously no longer exists, and we're going to have to inform other family members about her pattern of lies to protect them from future manipulations. It was poetic justice. Ashley had built her life on a web of lies and manipulations, and now that web was spectacularly unraveling. And Ryan, how is he processing all this? That's the saddest part. I don't think he really knew anything about Ashley's lies. He's devastated. He keeps saying he thought he had married a different woman. My poor son. Despite everything, I still felt pain for his confusion and disillusionment, but I also knew this was the only way for him to open his eyes to the reality of his marriage. Chloe, is there anything else I should tell you? What? When I return home, and I will return soon, I'm going to make some important changes. Ashley will no longer have free access to my house. There will be new rules, new boundaries, and new consequences for disrespect. That sounds perfect to me. It's time she learned to live in the real world. I hung up the phone and asked the chauffeur to take me back to the hotel. I had seen enough for today. Tomorrow would be the day of my triumphant return. The morning of December 24th dawned cold but bright, as if the universe had decided to bless my day of triumphant return. I got up early, calmly packed my bags, and prepared for the final confrontation I had been planning for months. Before leaving the hotel, I made one last call, this time to my lawyer, Robert Sanchez. It's Susan. Are all the documents we discussed ready? Perfectly ready, Susan. The changes to the will are notarized. The modification to the house deed is recorded, and the new residency agreements are prepared for your signature. Perfect. I'll see you in an hour at my house. Are you sure you want to do this on Christmas Eve? Robert, there's no more perfect time. It's time my family learned the true meaning of gratitude. The taxi dropped me off at my driveway at 10 in the morning. The rental cars were still there, but now there was a different energy in the air. Less frantic, more tense, like the calm before a storm everyone knows is coming. I opened the door with my key, and the silence that followed was deafening. I could hear muffled voices from the kitchen, but they stopped abruptly when my heels echoed on the marble floor of the foyer. Susan! Ryan's voice sounded incredulous, almost hopeful. Yes, I'm back. Footsteps rushed towards me from multiple directions. First appeared Ryan, with deep dark circles under his eyes and disheveled hair, clearly having spent days without good sleep. Behind him came Ashley, but it was an Ashley I had never seen before. Without makeup, with wrinkled clothes, her eyes swollen from crying. Mom! Ryan approached as if to hug me, but stopped abruptly when he saw my expression. Thank goodness you're back. We need to talk. Oh, we're going to talk, but not alone. Just then, Ashley's family members appeared, Michael with his imposing presence and serious face, Chloe with a folder full of documents, Emily and David, both with expressions of deep disappointment. "Mrs. Miller," Michael approached and respectfully extended his hand to me. "It's an honor to finally meet you. We deeply regret having met you under these circumstances." "The honor is mine, Michael, and don't worry about the circumstances. Sometimes the truth needs to come out dramatically." Ashley finally found her voice, though it sounded broken and desperate. "Susan, please, we have to clear up this whole misunderstanding. My family is confused by some documents that apparently—" "There are no misunderstandings, Ashley. There are facts, and it's time for everyone to know the complete facts." Just then, the doorbell rang. It was Robert, my lawyer, arriving punctually as he had promised. "Perfect timing," I murmured, heading to open the door. "Robert, thank you for coming. I think we are all ready for the conversation we've been postponing for years." Robert entered with his professional briefcase, impeccably dressed despite it being Christmas Eve. His presence immediately changed the dynamic of the room, adding a legal and official weight that made everyone straighten up. "Good morning," he greeted professionally. "I am Robert Sanchez, Mrs. Miller's attorney. I understand there are some family and financial matters that need clarification." Ashley paled even more. "Why is there a lawyer here?" "Because after 5 years of emotional abuse, financial manipulation, and a total lack of respect, I have decided that I need legal protection," I replied with glacial calm. "Legal protection? From what?" Ryan sounded genuinely confused. "From your wife's attempts to use my future death as collateral for loans? From her plans to convince you to sell my house to pay off her compulsive shopping debts? From her unauthorized use of your credit information? Do I need to continue?" The silence that followed was absolute. Ashley collapsed onto the sofa, finally understanding that her world of lies had completely collapsed. Robert opened his briefcase. "Mrs. Miller, shall we proceed with the reading of the new documents, please?" "Very well. First, the testamentary changes. Mrs. Miller has modified her will to ensure that the ownership of this house can never be sold or mortgaged without her explicit consent, even after her death. The house will be transferred to a family trust that protects Ryan's interests but prohibits any financial speculation." Ashley began to cry silently. Ryan looked shocked, but also, for the first time, genuinely ashamed. "Second, the new terms of residence. Ashley no longer has unrestricted access rights to this property. Any visit must be coordinated in advance and approved by Mrs. Miller." "What exactly does that mean?" Ryan asked in a trembling voice. "It means your wife can no longer come into my house whenever she feels like it to give orders about my food and my time, or to assume that I will be her housekeeper." "Mom, I never knew that she—" "You never knew? In 5 years you never noticed that every time you had guests, I did all the work while she took the credit? You never wondered why your wife never cooked or cleaned, but always talked about what a perfect hostess she was?" Ryan lowered his head, finally facing years of willful blindness. Michael approached Ashley, his voice laden with paternal disappointment. "Ashley, our family gave you opportunities, trust, and support based on lies. You made us unwitting accomplices in your disrespect towards a woman who deserved our admiration, not our contempt." "Uncle, I never meant to—" "You never meant to what? Lie about your income? Use Ryan's credit? Promise inheritances that weren't yours? Treat your mother-in-law like a maid?" Ashley had no answer. For the first time in 5 years, she had no manipulation, excuse, or deflection to offer. "There's one more thing," I continued, looking directly at Ashley. "You're going to pay back every penny you borrowed using lies about my supposed inheritance. You're going to personally apologize to every family member you deceived, and you're going to learn to live within your real means, not in the fantasy you built at my expense." "And if she doesn't?" Chloe asked. "Then she will face the appropriate legal consequences for identity fraud and fraudulent acquisition of credit." Robert closed his briefcase. "The documents are ready for signature when you are prepared." I addressed the entire family gathered in my living room. For 5 years, I sacrificed my dignity believing I was keeping the family together, but I learned something important. A family built on disrespect and manipulation is no family at all. It's a toxic structure that harms everyone involved. I looked specifically at Ryan. Son, I love you, but you have to decide what kind of man you want to be. One who allows his wife to abuse his mother, or one who defends respect and honesty in his family. Finally, I looked at Ashley, and you have to decide if you want to be a responsible adult who faces the consequences of her actions, or continue to be a manipulative child who expects others to solve the problems she herself creates. The clock struck noon on Christmas Eve. Outside, other families would be preparing celebrations full of genuine love and mutual respect. Now, I said with a smile I had been saving for months, those who want to stay for a Christmas based on honesty, respect, and real gratitude are welcome. Those who prefer to continue living in fantasies and manipulations can leave. For the first time in 5 years, I had total control of my house, my life, and my future. And I had never felt such sweet freedom. If you enjoyed my story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can write more stories like this. Thanks a lot in advance. What about you? What would you do in this person's shoes? I'd really love to hear your thoughts, so drop them in the comments. I'm always curious to know what you think. Oh, and let me know where you've heard this story. If you want to hear more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many more waiting for you. Big hugs, and see you next time.